Welcome to class today, pre-calculus students. Hope you guys are having a good week, and welcome to the Friday edition of our class. I know you're excited to get the week over with, and also I'm sure you're excited about a 3-day weekend. So with that in mind, please don't forget there will not be any class on this coming Monday. This Monday is Labor Day, so enjoy the day off. There will be no videos listed for you. No homework or anything like that. So enjoy your time off, and I hope you guys are working well. Don't forget you're going to turn in your homework integrity sheet next Monday, a week from this coming Monday. If you have every assignment done, 100 and every one, I will give you 5 bonus points on your next quiz, not the one you're going to take this weekend, but the next one. So please be doing that. Also, it's just wise to do your homework so you understand the math and practice it and don't get behind. Let's see. You will have a quiz to take over the weekend, and I have not. I mean, it's ready. I haven't typed it, but I know exactly the exact problems I'm going to put on the quiz, and I will email that to you young men Friday night or Saturday morning sometime. You'll have the weekend to take that. It's due on Tuesday, not Monday. Again, Monday's a day off, so it's due on Tuesday. And a lot of you just held off and turned that in the day that you took the test. I don't mind that, but I'd like you to start doing something. Shoot me off an email saying, yes, I'm done with the quiz, or no, I'm not. If you don't, I am going to contact your parents. I have to do that. And I am going to do that if you don't notify me that you're done with the quiz by Tuesday, or if you bring it by. I know Caleb lives close by, and he brought his by the last time, and that's fine. You're more than welcome to do that. So that's some of the quick announcements. Let's go ahead and get started with today's notes. We're finishing finally our 2-week review, actually 3-week review of Algebra 2, making sure we're fundamentally ready for pre-calculus. And we're going to review today solving quadratic equations. We're going to look at 2 basic methods when it comes to solving quadratic equations. Now, there's more than 2 methods, but we're going to look at the 2 main basic ways to solve quadratic equations. And the 2 ways, hopefully you're writing this heading down while I'm talking, and the date today is the 30th, if you want to make note of that, 8/30/13. We're going to solve quadratic equations today by factoring and by using the quadratic formula. Again, 2 basic methods of solving quadratic equations. Now, some of you I've not had in the past, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with what quadratic equations are. So just in case, you should be, but just in case you're not, let's quickly take care of that. This is what a quadratic equation looks like. Now, yesterday we solved a bunch of linear equations. Do you remember that? Hopefully you do. It was just it was just yesterday, so I hope you remember that. And the thing about yesterday's equations, did you just see how I erased that 2 right there? Okay? I'm going to erase it again. There. This is a linear equation. And those are the ones that we solved yesterday. All right? We had x's and all of the x's, even though you couldn't see their exponents, there's really a 1 there and a 1 there, and those are called linear equations, okay? But today we're going to get into solving equations in which one of the variables has an exponent of 2, okay? And we call that a quadratic equation. Now, if there is another mathematician listening to this video, he would want to throw something at me or argue with me. I haven't really given a super profound professional definition for quadratic equations, but I did in Algebra 2 class, and for today this is sufficient to just allow us to get into solving these equations. But this is a quadratic equation, and it's called a quadratic equation because of this 2 right here with the x. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into now what we're going to look at today. Now, it is review, so I don't teach it super methodically, but I want to say this. I'm going to take this equation here in a second and solve it using a method, then this one solving a method. Then I'm going to take those same 2 problems and I'm going to solve them again using another method. So to give you some closure, in case you want to know how long the video will be today, I'm going to work on 4 problems for you and then give your homework to you and then go over your quiz, at least what will be on the quiz, so you can study before you take the quiz. Okay. Let's solve this quadratic equation here by using the factoring method. Would you write this problem in your notes, please? And please make a side note off to the side that we're using the factoring method, okay? Now, first of all, you never want to factor a quadratic equation. Hopefully you're listening. I didn't write down steps for you because this is review, so I'm just kind of going over this with you. You never want to solve a quadratic equation by using the factoring method unless you have one side equal to 0. In other words, we want to take this positive 4 and move it over here. That way there's nothing left on this side over here. Now when I do that, of course, I'm going to have a negative 4. I'm going to cross this off. And notice there's no like term I can add this negative 4 to, okay? I've got an x squared term, an x term, and then a constant term, so I'm just going to put the negative 4 right here. You can't combine that negative 4 with any of these terms because none of them are like terms. There, I have one side equal to 0. Wasn't that easy? That's easy. And now next, you take this trinomial right here, and what do you think you do to it? You factor it. You factor it. Okay? Well, this is a trinomial with a lead coefficient of 1, and so that simply means I'm going to list out the factors of negative 4. And I'm not going to list all those out. I'll simply say this: a positive 1 and a negative 4 are the two numbers you want. Because if you multiply those two numbers, you get a negative 4, and if you combine those two numbers, you get a negative 3. So I'm now ready to very quickly factor this quadratic equation. Hope I'm not going too fast. Let's stop and review again. You take your equation and you get one side equal to 0. Then you take what you're left on the one side, all of these terms, and you factor them. And now you can see why I have preached to you guys factoring, factoring, factoring. We will use factoring all year. We're going to factor trigonometric expressions with sine, cosine, and tangent. We're going to do all kinds of factoring, so you have to know your factoring. Okay? All right, so x plus 1, x minus 4. There we go. So we factored. And now here's all that you have to do. And we've kind of done this before. I want this entire left side right here to be equal to 0. Okay? So I'm saying to myself, what would I put in for this parentheses right here for x? That would make this parentheses become a 0, thus the whole thing would become a 0. Well, for this x right here, wouldn't I put a negative 1? What's a negative 1 plus 1? 0. So there's one answer right there, negative 1. Now, what would I put in for this x here to make this whole parentheses 0? Well, I would put in a 4, right? Because 4 minus 4 is 0. So there's your other answer. So quadratic equations will never have more than two answers, and sometimes they'll just have one, but usually they will have two. That's not unusual. Okay? So there's your two answers. You just solved a quadratic equation using the factoring method. Now you notice this procedure is nothing like the equations we did yesterday in which we were solving linear equations. They're done totally different, and that's why this 2 right here makes all the difference in the world. Okay, you have to recognize that and know that you have a quadratic equation. Okay, let's try another problem in which we're solving by factoring. Here we go. Please copy this in your notes, and while you're copying this problem in your notes, make a note off to the side that we are going to use the factor method or the factoring method. All right? And let's go ahead and give this a shot. Now the first thing you should notice totally on your own is that we have a y squared. Now as soon as you see that one of the y's or one of your variables has a power of 2, you know right away you're dealing with a quadratic equation, so we're going to have to use the factoring method or the quadratic formula method. So we're going to use the factoring method. All right, here we go. Now you always want to get one side equal to 0 first, so I'm going to take this negative 5y, bring it over, and make it a positive 5y. All right, so here's my positive 5y, and now I'm going to cross this off. Now I'm going to take this negative 10 and bring it over, put it right here, and make it a positive 10. So when I do that, I now have a positive 10 right here, and I'm going to cross this off. So here's my equal sign. I have nothing left on the right side, so I'm going to put a 0, and I'm left with 9y squared plus 15y, 10y plus 5y plus 4, because a negative 6 and a positive 10 is 4. Now we're going to factor this, and unfortunately I do not have one of the easy trinomials. I have one of the difficult ones in which I do not have a lead coefficient of 1. I have a lead coefficient of 9. So in my head I'm going to take this first number here times my constant term, 9 times 4, and I'm going to put a positive 36. Then I want to list out all of the all of the factors of 36 that when you add them, one of them will add up to a positive 15. Now, as I'm going through all these factors in my head, I could list them all out. That would take quite a while. One thing that pops into my head would be this: a positive 3 times a positive 12. If you multiply those, you'll get 36, and if you combine those, you'll get a positive 15. So remember what to do. You bring down your first term, and then where the 15y is, we split that up into two terms. And we take our 3 from over here, and we put a y with it because there's a y with a 15. Then we bring our 12 over, and we put a y with a 12 because there's a y with a 15. And then bring down your positive 4. And now we're going to continue to factor. First of all, we pull out what's common in the first two terms, and that would be a 3 and a y. I did warn you guys about a week ago I'm going to start factoring a lot faster now because you really should have this mastered, okay? So if I factor out a 3y, 3y times 3y, 9y squared, 3y times 1 is 3y. Now I look at these two terms here, I can pull out a 4, that's what they have in common, and I'm left over with 3y plus 1. 4 times 3y is 12y, and 4 times 1 is 4. Now we're almost done factoring. We have this parentheses here, 3y plus 1, and then the other parentheses would be 3y plus 4. Now I actually chose this problem on purpose for this reason. And do you see the dilemma we have now? Let's go back and look at the last problem that we did. Was it not really easy to look at this parentheses and know right away x had to be a negative 1? You knew that right away. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. And wasn't it easy to look at this parentheses and know right away that x had to be 4 because 4 minus 4 is 0? Those were easy. But what are we going to do now that we have a parentheses like 3y plus 1? Now you could try to do it in your head, and I'm going to tell you right now the answer is negative 1/3. But the way that I knew that is if you can't do it in your head, then take the parentheses, 3y plus 1, and just set it equal to 0 and solve it real quick, and then you'll know what y has to be to make this parentheses 0. Do you see what I'm saying? The last problem you could do in your head. This one you're not going to be able to. So I'm going to bring the 1 over and make it a negative 1, so I'm left with negative 1, and then divide both sides by 3, and I get negative 1/3. So you know what that means? That means if I put 1/3 in for y right here, 3 times 1/3 is be a negative 1/3. Sorry, 3 times negative 1/3 is negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So there's one of my answers right there. Now this is one that you really can't do in your head unless you get really experienced at these. So we're going to take it and we're going to set it equal to 0. All right, we're going to bring the 4 over and make it a negative 4. And now divide both sides by 3. When you divide both sides by 3, you will get negative 4/3. Now, you know what that means? That means if you put negative 4/3 right here, this whole parentheses would become a 0. 3 times negative 4/3 is negative 4, and negative 4 plus 4 is 0. If you don't believe me, take your calculator, type this in, you'll see that it does work. So one answer is negative 1/3, the other answer is negative 4/3. Now some of you might have had a different answer right here where my pen is kind of scribbling right here. You might have had a different answer. You might have had this answer, which is totally fine. Instead of negative 4/3, you might have had negative 1 1/3, which is totally fine. Or you might have had negative 1.3 repeating. All of these answers right here, all three of these are the same. I really don't care what form that you have. And then this is the other answer over here. Okay? So what I quickly did, and you know, students, I really don't see a need to do 4, 5, or 6 of these. It's the same procedure every time. It's simply get one side equal to 0, and then factor the other side. And then ask yourself what makes these parentheses equal to 0. Same thing here. Get one side equal to 0, and then take the other side and factor it down, and then take each group and set each group equal to 0. And that's all you have to do. All right. Now, I want to show you, I want to kind of prove to you that you can use either method, okay? So we use the factoring method here, we use the factoring method here, right? Do you follow that? So now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this problem that we did earlier in your notes. This should be in your notes. We did it, the first problem in your notes. I'm going to paste it right here. There. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this answer that we got, and I'm going to pull it way down here out of the way. All right? And now we're going to solve this exact same problem, Only what we're going to do is we're going to use a different method, and I want to show you that we're going to get the exact same answer. Okay? The exact same answer. So here we go. Now what I want us to do is I want us to solve this quadratic equation using the quadratic formula, to which I probably hear a lot of groans if I was there at you guys' houses. And here's the quadratic formula. It's negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, these problems will be on your quiz over the weekend, but you will not have to memorize this for your quiz. You are welcome to have that written down on a sheet of paper when you take your quiz. For the test, you will have to have that memorized. Okay, we're going to solve this quadratic equation using this formula. And when we're all done, we're going to get the exact same answer. So here we go. Once again, you do not want to try to factor or use the quadratic formula unless one side is equal to 0. So I'm going to bring my 4 over, and when I bring this positive 4 over, it becomes a negative 4. Okay? Now, next, after you have made one side equal to 0, here's where your a's, b's, and c's come in. All right? This number in front of the x squared is a 1. That's your a. The number that's in front of the x, negative 3, that's your b. And this constant term all by itself is your c. Mr. Earhart, will it always be that way? Always. Period. As long as you have one side equal to 0, the x squared coefficient will be your a, the x coefficient will be your b, and the constant term here will be your c. So with that in mind, we're now able to take these numbers and to substitute them into the formula. So look what you have here, please, students. I have a negative b. Do you see that? Negative b. I'm going to go ahead and put a fraction bar right here. There's my big fraction bar, okay? All right, negative b. So I got a negative sign, and then for b, what is b? B's a negative 3. So I really have a double negative. I have negative, negative 3. Do y'all see that? See this negative sign right here? And then I substituted negative 3. Maybe I should write these out. A equals 1, b equals negative 3, and c equals negative 4. Maybe it'll help if you guys see it like that. All right, so where b is, I put a negative 3. And then plus, minus, now I come inside. I'm going to do a little bit of this in my head. In fact, actually, see this negative, negative 3 right here? I'm going to go ahead and, I knew that would happen, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and just make that negative, negative 3 a positive 3. There we go. And now let's go ahead and come inside the radical. Now, and the radical is a square root. Now, b squared, we can do that in our head, guys. Negative 3 squared. Put a negative 3 in for b. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Now, negative 4, I'm going to do AC in my head. I can see this AC. I can do AC in my head. A is 1, and C is negative 4. 1 times negative 4. Do you see that? AC, AC. A times C. A is 1, C is negative 4. 1 times negative 4. So I put a negative 4 right here. And then all over in the bottom, 2 times A. Well, I can do that in my head. 1 is A, 2A. 1A is 1, so 2 times 1 would be 2. Now, be very careful inside your radical here. Please, students, be very careful. Order of operations. You do not take a positive 9 minus 4. You first must multiply. Do you see that? You first must multiply. So I have a positive 9, watch carefully, and a positive 16. Now where'd the positive 16 come from? A negative 4 times a negative 4. A negative 4 times a negative 4. That's what it says right here. Negative 4AC. That means negative 4 times A times C. So I did A times C first times negative 4. And that gives me a positive 16. Now I'm going to work to the left, which is a little unorthodox. We're going to go this way. Now I have 3 plus minus the square root of 25. Where did I get 25? 9 plus 16. All over 2. Okay, students? Are you with me so far on this? Now I am going to run out of space here, so I am going to have to go like this, and then we're going to have to pull this over. All right. Now, Students, we're almost done. Watch this. We know what the square root of 25 is. My goodness. 5 times 5 is 25. So the square root of 25, I'm amazed at how many students put the square root of 5. The square root of 25 is not the square root of 5. The square root of 25 is just 5. And then put it all over 2. Now we're almost done. Do you see how we have a plus minus here? Can we not rewrite this very quickly two different ways? Come on, think about it. 3 plus 5 all over 2. And then the other sign is minus. So 3 minus 5 all over 2. All right, 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 over 2, or 8 divided by 2, is 4. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. And negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So what two answers did I get? X equals 4 and negative 1. Hey, let's go back and see what two answers did I get when I used the factoring method. Right there it is, 4 and negative 1. If you don't believe me, go back in your notes and look. Here's the factoring method right here, the exact same problem. Look what we got, 4 and negative 1. So it doesn't matter if you use the factoring method or it doesn't matter if you use the quadratic formula method, you get the same answers. Mr. Earhart, this is dumb. Why do we have to learn both methods? Because you can't always factor a quadratic formula. So if you can't factor it, then you have to use the quadratic formula, okay? Or let me say it again, you can't always factor a quadratic equation. Thus, sometimes you have to use the quadratic formula. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take the problem that we solved before by the factoring method, and here it is. And I'm going to quickly pull this over to another page like I did before. Hopefully this will work. Thanks for your patience on this. There. And here's our, I'm going to erase just about everything except our answers at the bottom. If I can do this successfully. And I'm going to show you once again, we're going to get the exact same answers. The exact same answers. So I'm going to pull this negative 1/3 over here. And I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to pull this off to the side. Negative 4/3. Okay? So there's the two answers that we got out when we factored this quadratic equation. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use, and I believe I had what? Was it a negative 5? I believe it was a negative 5 and a negative 10, I believe. Yeah, that's correct. What we're going to do is we're going to take this exact same equation, and instead of using the factoring method, we're going to use the quadratic formula method. If you're about ready to fall asleep, this is the last problem, then we'll go over your quiz and let you know what's going to be on the quiz. So here's the quadratic formula, negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, first of all, I taught you this before. You must get one side equal to 0. So I'm going to bring this negative 5 over. That should be a 5y, so please fix that in your notes. I apologize. Negative 5y. Bring this negative 5y over, and it becomes a positive 5y. Cross that off. Bring this negative 10 over, and it becomes a positive 10. Cross this negative 10 off. So we're left with 9y squared plus 15y plus 4 equals 0. Now that one side is equal to 0, we know what a, b, and c are. Not sure what happened there. A equals 9, b equals 15, and c equals 4. So with that in mind, let's immediately jump over here into our quadratic formula. And here's negative b. Well, b is 15, so I have a negative sign. A negative sign, then I put 15. So there we go. So the negative sign came from right up here. And then I put in a positive 15. So a negative 15. And then plus minus the square root of. Now, what's inside the radical here? B squared. Well, that should be 225. All right? 15 times 15. And if you need to use a calculator on that, feel free to. And then minus 4ac. So minus 4. And I'm going to kind of do ac in my head. A times c. A is 9. C is 4. A is 9. C is 4. And 9 times 4. A times c. 9 times 4 is 36. And that's all over 2a. Well, a is 9, so 2 times 9 is 18. Not too bad. Now be careful inside the radical. If you're going to make a mistake, this is where most students make it right here. They take the 225 and they subtract 4. And that's not right. You first must do your multiplication. So bring down your 225 and then realize you have a negative 4 times a positive 36. A negative 4 times a positive 36. Feel free to use a calculator if you want to, and you should get 24 carrier 2, 144, all over 18. Now we can simplify this radical a little more. Now we have negative 15 plus minus the square root of, let's see, it would be 56. If you subtract these numbers here, we should get an 81 all over 18. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's go ahead and try to finish this on another page just so we have room. So let's grab this real quick and drag it. So now let's go a little further here. We know the square root of 81, that's 9. So negative 15 plus minus 9 all over 18. The square root of 81 is 9. 9 times 9 is 81. And now because we have two signs here, positive, negative, then we're going to rewrite this two different ways. Negative 15 plus 9 all over 18, and negative 15 minus 9 all over 18. Well, let's see. Negative 15 plus 9 would be negative 6 over 18. And if you reduce that, you will get negative 1/3 because 6 goes into 6 and 6 goes into 18. Over here we have negative 15 and negative 9. That's a negative 24 over 18. And if you reduce this, 6 goes into both of those numbers, and you will get a negative 4/3. 6 goes into 24 4 times, and 6 goes into 18 3 times. So I'm getting out a negative 1/3 and a negative 4/3. Let's go back and see what my answers were before when I used the factoring method. Look at that. Negative 4/3, negative 1/3. The exact same answers I got out when I used the quadratic formula. So students, it doesn't matter if you factor or use the quadratic formula, you'll get the right answer as long as you do it correctly. And again, the reason I make you know both methods is sometimes you cannot factor a quadratic equation, excuse me. Now, let's continue on. This is your homework. It's 8 problems. Very, very lenient. Very, very reasonable, okay? A lot of teachers will give anywhere from 15 to 20 of these. I'm giving you 8, okay? Now notice what I want you to do. I want you to do 29 through 43i, but look students, what method do I want you to use for 29? Factoring method. 31, use the quadratic formula. 33, use the factoring method. 35, use the quadratic formula method, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So make sure you use the right method with the correct number so you're practicing all of these different methods, okay? Now, we're almost done. Hope you have a great weekend. This homework assignment is due on Tuesday. No class on Monday. This assignment is due on Tuesday, and your quiz is due on Tuesday. So very quickly, it won't take long, I just want to give you the 4 topics that your quiz is over. Are you ready? And again, I'm going to go kind of fast. You'll need to pause it probably to take notes. Remember on Tuesday we did multiplying and dividing rational expressions. If you want some examples to study, there's your homework assignment. See how I'm putting this all together for you nicely so you have it all on one page, okay? And then on, let me get my work thing working here. And then on Wednesday, we covered adding and subtracting rational expressions. If you want some examples to look at, here's your homework assignment right here. That was the killer of the week. Remember, it was a 45 to 50-minute video, and your homework took about an hour. I'm sure you've not forgotten that. There'll be some of these on the quiz. There'll be some of these on the quiz, some of these on the quiz. And then next, there will be solving linear equations on, I said test, it's a quiz. I apologize. I get going a little fast sometimes and don't realize what I'm saying. These will all be on your quiz that you're taking over the weekend. Multiplying and dividing rational expressions, adding and subtracting rational expressions, solving linear equations. That's probably the easiest ones on the quiz. If you need some examples, here's your homework that you did. Study and rework those problems if you want some practice. The last thing on your quiz is what I went over today. Solving quadratic equations. And on the quiz, you will have some in which I make you use the factoring method, and on the quiz, there are some that I make you use the quadratic formula. Now again, remember, you do not have to have the formula memorized. You are more than welcome to have that written somewhere on a sheet of paper and laid out beside your quiz while you take the quiz. I have no problem with that. For the test, though, you'll have to have it memorized, okay? Hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your 3-day weekend. I will talk to you guys on Tuesday, and I will email you a quiz to take over the weekend. Also, one other quick thought. I'm going to be making videos for you guys to watch individually to help you find your test and quiz mistakes. They're going to be really quick. There'll be some short videos, just like 5 minutes, in which Matthew, for example, when I get your test to you, Matthew, and your quiz to you, you can then, when I'll get a video ready for you, you can pull it up and watch a video just for you in which it shows you where you made a mistake on your test or quiz, okay? So guys, that'll be coming later on this weekend too. Call or email if you have any questions.